Things are really heating up between the United States and Iran, and the talk of a potential military conflict is getting louder and louder. So what's actually happening on the ground and behind the scenes? Okay, let's jump right in and break down this incredibly dangerous standoff.
This quote right here, it just perfectly captures the mood in Iran. This isn't just about politics anymore. For millions of people, the threat of war is becoming this deeply personal and, frankly, terrifying reality.
So yeah, let's start with that human element. Beyond all the military posturing and the high-stakes diplomatic chess games, there's a very real fear that's spreading through the streets of Iran.
I mean, just imagine this for a second. People are trying to keep things normal, right? They're going to work, they're living their lives. But just under the surface, you can feel this growing anxiety. They're seeing the same headlines we are, and the possibility of an attack just feels more and more real with every passing day.
And look, this fear, it's not just some abstract idea. It's rooted in very recent memory. A lot of people are thinking back to attacks right there in the region where civilians paid this awful price, and they're terrified those same devastating scenes could play out in their own cities.
So, what's actually fueling this fear? Well, a huge part of it is directly linked to a massive and very, very visible military buildup happening in the region.
The word on the ground from all sorts of reports is that this is not just a warning shot. The assessment is that the U.S. military isn't just getting ready, they are ready. All the pieces are in place for a major military operation, just waiting for the green light. And the scale of this whole thing is just immense. We're talking about huge naval power, like the USS Abraham Lincoln Aircraft Carrier Group, which is basically a floating airbase that can project power for hundreds of miles. You've got enhanced air power, missile defenses are on high alert, troops have been mobilized, and key allies are in the loop. It is a massive, formidable military posture, and it's sending a very serious signal.
But here's the crazy thing. For all of this incredible military machinery and all the complex geopolitics, the final command comes down to just one person. The President of the United States has the sole authority to give that order.
And of course, that brings up a huge question that analysts are asking. With so much hanging in the balance, would a strike like that even be legal? The whole debate is about whether the president can act without explicit approval from Congress. It's a massive constitutional question hanging over this entire situation.
Which brings us over to the world of diplomacy, which is just as tense and complicated. While the military side of things seems pretty clear-cut, the diplomatic signals, they are all over the place, creating this climate of extreme uncertainty.
So on one side, you've got countries like Turkey apparently trying to be mediators, pushing for a way to de-escalate. But then on the other side, you've got key allies like Saudi Arabia who are reportedly telling U.S. officials that not attacking would actually make Iran bolder, which is pretty much pushing for military action.
So where does Iran stand in all this? Well, their position is pretty firm. They've stated very clearly that they are not going to make the kinds of concessions on their nuclear program that are being demanded. Period.
All right, so this leads us to the biggest question of all. If an attack does happen, what would that even look like? And, just as important, how would Iran hit back?
See, the tricky part is that the possible U.S. goals are all pretty different, which makes predicting the targets really tough. If the goal is just to stop the nuclear program, the targets would probably be nuclear facilities. But if the goal is something much bigger, like regime change, well then Iran's supreme leader could be a target. Or, if the idea is to spark protests from within, then strikes might focus on military and government buildings.
And Iran, they're not being quiet about what they'll do. The message coming from their military and government officials is a direct promise of a forceful, aggressive retaliation.
And that aggressive response could have massive consequences, not just for the region, but for the whole world. We're talking about possibly targeting U.S. forces all over the region, striking U.S. allies like Israel, or even trying to shut down the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, which would be a huge deal for the global economy. The potential for this thing to spiral out of control is enormous.
So what do we have? We've got real fear on the ground, a massive military force ready to go, and diplomacy that's sending completely mixed messages. The only thing that's clear is that this whole situation is incredibly fragile, and nobody really knows what's going to happen next.
And that leaves us right here, with this incredibly sobering thought. All the pieces for a major conflict are on the board. The signals are a mess, and the stakes could not be higher. What happens next could all come down to a single decision, made by a single person.